Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. And so I'm Patrick Maxwell. I head up business and corporate development here. I look after our partners, whether they're sort of other technology companies, consulting firms, in addition, the large strategics. And then in addition, I also head up our inorganic growth department, looking at smaller acquisitions that we might be able to do. Been at Clari for about 18 months. Really excited to be in this conversation with Nicole and talking about conversational intelligence is really important as part of the overall RevOps story. So Nicole, I will pass it to you for maybe a little bit of background, and then we can hop into a couple slides. We'll just want to make sure I'll be moderating, flipping through slides, and then taking any questions that you want to add in the Q&A, and we'll make sure to reserve time for questions at the end.
That sounds great, Patrick. Thanks so much. So really excited to be here, everyone. Nicole LaBarbera. I'm Regional Vice President of Sales at Chorus AI. I joined about 4 months ago, and I lead the Strategic Enterprise Sales Organization. So let me give you a quick background on Chorus and maybe what is conversation intelligence before we jump into the content. So Chorus was founded in 2015. We're headquartered in San Francisco. We're a conversation intelligence platform that was built for enterprise organizations. We use patented AI to transform conversations into data and insights in order to power growth across massive go-to-market teams. So conversation intelligence, or CI, as it was kind of labeled in the session name, is a newer sales technology, and it records, transcribes, and analyzes all of your customer-facing calls to deliver, again, actionable insights across an entire organization, not just the sales team. But specifically, if we look at how these insights can improve sales performance, I think about 3 key things. First, we're able to identify what's working and what's not working in your sales playbook and across all of your various talk tracks. Then we really rely on the AI to proactively surface winning behaviors from your best reps and help the rest of your team emulate what great looks like. And then finally, we empower organizations to leverage the voice of the customer to continue to drive more deals in a smaller amount of time. And then thinking about how we impact a broader team, insights driven by conversation intelligence can inform all types of product and marketing decisions. So really you can start to understand what your prospective and current customers care about in order to form more strategic business decisions and a long-term competitive advantage. So Patrick, if you want to advance to the first slide, we'll dive right into it. Yeah, so let's just talk about why CI exists. Right? If we think back to a few years ago, or maybe a little bit longer, depending on where you are in your sales career, I think about furiously scribbling down in my notebooks or writing down on my computer all of the things that I need to remember from a sales call. So I could go write a killer follow-up email and get all of the deal context that I need for that next excellent meeting. Then I would have to enter all of the details from my notes into the CRM. So my manager and my manager's manager had visibility into my deals and just what I was working on. Right? Next, I would constantly be seeking coaching and feedback and deal advice from not just my manager, but my teammates and the rest of the deal team. And the whole time I was just trying to relay what happened in these conversations, right? So it turned into a big game of telephone. And if you also think back a few years ago, sales coaching was really just deal coaching. My manager just used to pull up an opportunity in our CRM and go through whatever data was in there, and we would talk about how we could move it forward. And from an enablement perspective, those leaders were really tasked by the VPs or maybe senior level management with the skills they need to focus on in a given week or month, just based on a broad hypothesis around where their reps were not improving or performing to their fullest, right? So ultimately, it was just a black box. No one in the sales team really understood why we won or why we lost deals, which deals were likely to close or not, and what made some reps more successful than others, right? Well, some of them just tended to struggle. So again, thinking back to how these conversations are a black box, hiding away valuable insights from frustrated sales teams, we wanted to start digging into that problem a little bit more deeply. And Patrick, you can go on to the next slide. So if we look at Salesforce's State of Sales report, there are some really alarming statistics about over half the reps missing their quota. So why is that, right? If any sales leaders on the call can certainly, feel this pain. Is it because we just didn't uncover the right deal risks? Is it because we actually just carried over the insights from our notes into the CRM incorrectly? Or did we just not understand the client's needs? Did we ask the wrong questions? Is it actually a training gap that I need to work on with my enablement leaders? There are so many possibilities around why reps aren't hitting quota, but simply we don't have the full context of what's happening in these customer-facing calls, and it's really just not understood. And at the same time, if you want to go stay back, at the same time, almost 2/3 of a rep's time is not spent on selling. So think about that. Only 1/3 of your rep's time is spent on selling activities. So what are they doing for the rest of the time? They're doing administrative tasks. They're doing everything I just described around trying to capture those notes, sort through the notes manually, enter them up into CRM, right? So we're just losing inefficiently to this black box problem. And now if you go forward, Patrick, this snapshot of your CRM will look very familiar to any sales leader. We all know the feeling of having a critical deal that's supposed to close this week or this month or this quarter, and you pull up the CRM and it just looks something like this. There are a bunch of required fields that are just totally blank, right? We don't have the data we need to sit down with our reps to strategize properly, let alone go take any insights to my leaders or my CRO to tell them whether or not this deal is actually going to close. So the big challenge we're trying to solve on the next slide is really just helping sales reps and leaders see inside this black box of conversations and deals. And we believe the way to do that is to leverage the voice of the customer. So next slide here. Yep. So really, we want to start to unlock the insights buried in every single customer-facing call to more efficiently win deals. And easy access to the voice of the customer, right, really enables our reps to be more present. They don't have to furiously take notes. They can bring more value to their customer conversations. And then our frontline managers will also be empowered with the right level of insights to really understand how a client thinks or feels about working with your team or your product, and how to connect the dots to go win that deal. So if you go to the next slide, I really want to think about how the voice of the customer isn't just, a point in time activity. It's really important to capture across the entire duration of a sales cycle. So from the minute that a call is set with your business development team to the ongoing discovery process. And finally, how is the voice of the customer captured and leveraged during the negotiation process? And finally, when it's at close one, how do you properly hand the customer off to your professional services, account management, or customer success team? Oh, if you could stay back, sorry.
Sorry.
It's okay. So, right, selling just can't be a stagnant process. Like as you're going through, especially when deal cycles are longer and longer, right, you really have to evolve your conversations and how you're positioning to your clients' changing needs. So I'm going to put this a little bit from my own personal experience. My first job in high school was I worked in a hair salon. Now I wasn't a stylist, but we all know that even the smallest tweak in your stylist approach can have the greatest impact on the outcome and how happy you are when you walk out of that chair. Now, great stylists will actually listen to their clients. They'll listen to the people in the chair, and they let the customer's voice guide them to exactly how they want to look and feel when they walk out of that room. It's the same thing in sales. Every organization out there says they want to be client-centric. They want to be customer first. And if we really want to do that, if we want to put the customer at the center of the buying journey, our reps need to engage in active listening to truly understand what those unique needs and challenges are. So active listening is the key. Not having to frantically take notes or multitask. It reduces the inaccuracies and allows you to be fully present. And again, gaining that full visibility through the entire sales process is just critical for sales leaders when it comes to accurate forecasting. So now I'm going to share a little bit of insight that comes directly from Chorus. On the next slide here, Patrick. Thank you. There are a ton of factors that come into play when we think about deal forecasting or pipeline health. And so I'm going to walk through 5 that comes from some of our data, and they're directly related to voice of the customer and how it correlates to the likelihood of a won deal, right? So the first one, as sales leaders, we all want to understand when our competitors coming up in the process? How are they being mentioned? At what point? And so what we've found is that when competitors come up early in the sales process, we are more likely to win. So in closed won deals, they come about 5 to 6 times early on, but in closed loss deals, they're only coming up about 3 times. This correlates to what we're seeing when competitors come up in later stage deals. We click through to number 2. We all, again, know that feeling when we thought the deal was going great, we're forecasting it to win, and all of a sudden, a new competitor pops up as you're preparing to go into final pricing negotiations. Well, what the data is telling us is that this really spells trouble. In late stage deals, competitors are coming up about 4 or more times when you lose, and only about 2 times or fewer when you win. So
Nicole,
yeah.
Oh, just had a quick question for you, because this is super interesting. Why do you think that there's this discrepancy versus early in the deals and late in the deals in terms of the win rates, and why it's a good sign early and a bad sign late?
I mean, what I think is when you know that you're in a competitive situation, you have the ability to arm your team with the right talk tracks, the right level of competitive differentiation, and you can bring in the right resources to go and tell the story to the prospective customer about why you are the best partner. If you've just been proceeding and not understanding that you're in a competitive situation and you get that bombshell at the end, it's very, very hard to recover, right? So again, what the data is telling us is if you're in a competitive situation, you better find out early compared to late.
Totally. Yeah. Sorry to cut you off. Just wanted to
jump in.
That was a helpful sort of differentiation there. Do you want to clear the slide or?
Yeah, we can go on. So the next factor here is around pricing. Now, it can go way beyond sales leadership when it comes to wanting to understand how are we positioning pricing, when are we positioning pricing, how is it being received by our customers. But let's just think about from a timing perspective. And what we've actually found here in the next slide is that you're more likely to win, about 10% more likely to win when it comes up in the earlier stage of a deal. So this might seem counterintuitive, but again, it kind of takes the guesswork out of what's being, like what your hunch is around forecasting. And now we have more data points to arm our team with the right talk tracks of how to approach pricing conversations and when to have that earlier on with your team.
Yeah, so would love to know a little bit more. Like, are you telling your sellers to sort of discuss pricing in the first call? Are you saying, hey, if they bring it up first call, great, but make sure you don't get too far past sales qualified before you discuss pricing? How has this sort of changed your approach as a sales leader?
Yeah, I think you definitely want to have qualified opportunities before you have pricing discussions. That's always been my philosophy. But I think when we look at the buyer journey, again, being truly buyer-centric, it's just a fact that buyers are more along in their decision-making process as time goes on. They have more access to information. They have more access to, right, who else is leveraging your technology. So being transparent and being a good partner and having those pricing discussions, especially to establish budget early on, has been effective. Of course, it's going to vary across what are you selling, how complex is the cycle, who are you competing against, but that's typically what we're seeing.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And, you know, as a buyer of software, I know that I want to at least have a ballpark so that I know I'm not wasting my time, I'm not wasting your time. Because if you're going to tell me it's $1 million and I can spend 10,000, it's probably not going to be a super productive conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's all about building trust, right? So what does your buyer need, and really like spending the time to understand that.
Makes a lot of sense to me. Let's go on to number 4.
Cool. All right. So I love this topic, and I think this is actually a silver lining of this remote work world that we all find ourselves in. My CRO actually just did a whole podcast about this topic, about how the C-suite is getting more involved in deals, and sometimes without even giving notice that they might be jumping on a call. So that happens both on the buyer side and on the seller side, right? And that's because we don't have to spend all this time coordinating calendars to get these people in the room. They can just jump on the video conference. And what we see is that C-suite attendance, it increases the likelihood to win. So when you get those really passionate like founders or CEOs or whoever it is telling that story to the right audience, you're seeing win rate increase by about 37%.
Wow, that's really profound. And this is accounting for both on the seller side and on the buyer side, which makes a lot of sense, right? Like people are always amazed when Andy gets on a call and can see the passion for the product. And I'm sure on the buyer side, you know, if the CEO really wants it, usually it gets done.
Exactly. And then you have that access to power and you can build that stronger relationship all the way up at every level of the organization.
Yeah, makes a ton of sense. Perfect. And then number 5.
And the final one or statistic we'll leave you guys with is around accurately identifying the decision maker. So again, do we have the right people on the call, the right people with authority who can make the decision, right? And I don't think it's going to come as any surprise that 48% of lost deals come from inaccurately identifying the decision maker. So you've spent how many months or how many meetings with someone that just couldn't get the deal done. So constantly questioning that and using the voice of the customer to validate that has been really, really key. So it sounds like, Patrick, some of the data comes as a surprise to you. And you know, this is essentially what we found, not just across Chorus data, but all the millions of calls that we're analyzing, right? So some of this feels right instinctually, and some of it might be a little bit surprising. But ultimately, again, I think going into your sales planning or your training programs and having the right data to figure out how do we want to tweak our talk tracks over time and then measuring the impact has been really key for organizations who invest in conversation intelligence.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And, you know, it's such an important part of the overall sales process to understand where your customers are at, get that voice of the customer, and then incorporate it with all the other signals that you're gathering. You know, what's the level of activity? How quickly are you getting emails back? And really, we see the combination of having a conversational intelligence piece with some of the things that we're able to offer from Clari around, you know, understanding and mapping accounts. Are you reaching out to the priority accounts? Are you getting engagement of those accounts? What's the right signal on how these deals are progressing? And those really come together to tell a coaching story that people haven't had access to previously and is really, really powerful, I think, especially in this digital first world.
Exactly. Especially when we can't be in the room with our reps. I can't see my team face to face anymore, and that's really hard. So at least having access to the right data and the right level of insights has been key for me since joining Chorus.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And then I think we got a couple other things here. So
yeah, I just have a couple other slides just to quickly recap some of the business outcomes and value that conversation intelligence drives, and just high level, how does it work? So ultimately, right, conversation intelligence helps managers and CROs get a deeper level of deal insight so you can decrease risk and forecast more accurately. So based on what the prospect is actually saying, sales leaders know which deals are risky and what the team needs coaching on so they can go out and win more in the market. We think about how we help enablement leaders stop guessing on the curriculum that they're building and use actual data to identify where reps need to improve. And then we start to get more targeted, because it doesn't have to be a one-size-fits-all approach. We can talk about how we can enable reps across a certain team or at an individual level and track their progress over time. And then we think about from the rep level as well. So no more taking notes. The rep is engaged in active listening. They can leverage a transcript and those artificial intelligence trackers to understand, hey, these are the next steps and the next few things that I should be doing on this deal to move it towards close. And the final piece I'll kind of leave with is that identify actionable opportunities and how everyone in the organization can use the voice of the customer to improve their work. So for example, customer success knows how to prepare for a customer, how to onboard them before the deal even closes, because they can go back and listen to the sales conversations. Leadership can come up with better competitive strategies. Marketing can write copy that reflects how the prospects actually talk about their problems. And product marketing can also understand use cases for new features that are coming out. Right?
Totally.
Yep. So ultimately, we're trying to decode that black box, take the guesswork out of what's being said on these calls and across these deals.
And having that single source of truth really throughout the organization helps you break down barriers, which is fundamental to what we're seeing with the revenue operations journey, and just where sales and marketing and CS are coming together to form an overall revenue organization.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So now that we know the impact of conversation intelligence, I thought I would just quickly highlight at a high level how it actually works. So we just start with capturing the voice of the customer, and that comes in the form of many different things, from a video call, from an outbound dialer, from emails and CRM data, to your point, some of those other important signals. And then we begin to apply that AI or that analytics on top of it to extract actionable insights that teams can proactively use to go out and eliminate deal risk and start to close deals more quickly. But also, to your point, the connected vision is so important. So how we actually push these insights into your critical systems, into those single sources of truth, is really important as well. And why we love our trusted partners and people that help make these insights even more powerful. So connected conversation intelligence is just a totally differentiating philosophy that we believe in. It's not so much even about how we integrate, but rather it's about more understanding what are those different platforms that you see as single source of truth, and making sure that these insights are where you need them to be. So I'll leave you just with, kind of, again, what did the before and what did the after look like? So we just talked about CRM, for example. Well, according to an industry study, about 50% of sales leaders believe their CRM is challenging to use, and 18% believe that it's caused them to lose a deal or revenue recently. So while CRM is super, super important to aggregate everything you already know about a customer, right? Sometimes it's imperfect, right? And they are our single source of truth, and where a revenue team needs to stay focused. So what could the CRM look like when you start to embed conversation intelligence insights in there? And this is how we use Chorus directly within our CRM. So what we're showing here is how we track activity, again, across all those calls, emails, outbound dials, how we capture which contacts were engaged across each one of those touch points. And then we make all of the insights searchable so that your teams can go through and leverage the voice of the customer directly in the CRM. So just
awesome.
Yeah.
And what I think is so interesting about it is just like, we talk a lot about CRM is wonderful. It's a great system of record. But it's not sufficient by itself, right? There is so much more that the modern seller needs in order to be successful. And so enriching and bringing in that context across these different systems and building new systems of engagement, crucial for the modern seller and for the modern revenue organization.
Right.
So you're giving out some homework here.
I am. I'm very passionate about this. And I believe as a sales leader that it works. It works to not only close more deals and eliminate risk, but it improves how my reps come to work every day and how they develop as individual sellers. So if you have access to the voice of the customer, take a look at some of those core deal factors that I walked through. How are competitors mentioned, and when, at what stage? Can you also drill into insights around pricing? And how can you work with your RevOps team or anyone else who's involved in those conversations to improve that over time? Right? Do you have the right level of C-level engagement from your own organization and from your prospects? And finally, how are you using the voice of the customer to make sure you have the right decision makers? So strongly encourage everyone on the call, if you have access to conversation intelligence and voice of the customer, to really dig into those key factors and just try to understand how it could impact your business this year.
Fantastic. Thank you. So I will switch off. It's interesting. We actually use conversational intelligence, and we bring in and tag all the competitors and then bring it into a Slack field. Ben Chen highlighted this, who's one of our sales engineering leaders. And that really helps us drive a level of discussion of, oh, this is a competitive deal. How do we insert the right leaders into it? How do we bring the right process and the right talk tracks? Right. So if anyone has additional questions, please add them to the chat. I have a couple prepared. So Nicole, I know by day a sales leader, by night a Barry's instructor, would be very interested in, How do those sort of feed into each other? And what have you learned from being a Barry's instructor that's made you a better sales leader?
Yeah, I think one of the most important aspects of my day job, as I'll call it here at Chorus, is how I coach and inspire my team. Yeah. So it is all about how do I drive incremental improvements and keep my team motivated through the tough times. It's the exact same with fitness. We all experience setbacks. We all experience those moments where you don't want to get up, you don't want to go to class, you don't want to go to the gym, whatever it is, but you get up and do it anyway. And you have that coach who's there to guide you. Right? And sometimes in a group fitness level, it's hard to give that individualized attention, but those are the people that I've built the strongest relationship with. So, right, finding the people who, right, might not be the all-stars, finding the people who are struggling, spending a little bit of extra time with them. And that's something I carry with me through fitness and into my sales career.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I don't know if there's like a lot of blaring techno music in your one-on-ones as well, if that's incorporated. From my experience with Barry's, that is pretty key. But no, that makes a lot of sense. I
have threatened to do some Barry's team building activities, but no one's really taken me up on that yet.
Wow. Yeah. Well, we used to do a lot actually in my old job. We used to go as a team, and I always loved it, but it felt like 70% of people loved it and 30% really hated it.
It's niche. Yeah. You got to really love it for sure.
Well, perfect. The last question that I have is just around coaching. And so, you have these insights and then you're applying them to your team, but each person, has a little bit of style differences, but you want to also have a little bit of a uniform sort of process, that these things lead. How do you balance the need of customization with uniformity and really driving the right results while also allowing people to express themselves in the best possible ways?
Yeah. I mean, I think just back to my own experience as a sales rep, where sales, I truly believe, is a mix of an art and a science. Coaching is the same way. You need the analytics to tell you on the back end where are the gaps, but you need the EQ, the understanding of not only that my reps are varying in tenure and how they understand the product and the market, but even how they're going to receive coaching and feedback. Yeah. So it's really important just to have that level of sensitivity in how you deliver messaging, while also just talking through the benefit of what do we think an increase of X could do around this particular skill? How much more money could you earn? How would that feel for whatever personal goal that you're trying to develop? So I think also like continuing to reframe how this plays into that unique individual's, again, personal and career goals is key as well.
Fantastic. Well, we are at time. Thank you so much for joining. And, thank you everyone for joining the session as well. Really some great insightful comments. And it was so nice to learn about how conversational intelligence really helps play into overall RevOps and can help you drive deals and predict more accurately. So thank you, Nicole. Great to meet you. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the day and the sessions.
Thanks, Patrick. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.